Okay. Okay. Oh, yep. It's now recording. So let me go a quick little intro. We have Dan Rihn speaking to us tonight about various different soaring tracking websites and programs that are used for many different purposes, not only just for people to enjoy seeing what their fellow pilots are doing, but it's also a tool for pilots who want to improve their cross-country and soaring skills by seeing what other pilots have done and where they flew and how they flew. And it gives insight and some background as to their thoughts and insights as they were flying. So there's a couple of different programs that Dan's going to discuss and go over. So with that said, go ahead and take it away, Dan.
Oh, thank you, Christopher. Good evening. You've given me a heck of an intro there because it covers pretty much everything I'm going to talk about in a nutshell.
Oh, just an overview.
That's okay. So we're going to talk about studying cross-country flights. And this is something that I've been doing for some time. And there are several ways to do this. And I found them very useful in learning about flying cross-country by studying other pilots. You learn pretty quickly who the really good cross-country pilots are. And if you study them, you can learn a lot from them. But it's not just the experts you want to look at. You also want to look at more of your peers as well, because they're in the same learning phase of flying cross-country as you are. But whatever you do, study them. It's worth your time and your effort. So there's a couple of websites we're going to go over tonight. One of them is the GlidePort Aero. And this is one that's accessed a couple of different ways. You can get to it from the SSA members website. I'll show you how to do that. Or you can use the direct link. That's the URL that I show on this chart. Nice thing about this is you can also put it on your smartphone or tablet, although I've heard recently it's not available any longer for the iPhone, but it is for Android. I'm not sure about the tablet, but I think that's going to get changed. The SSA is now taking over this website, according to what Walt Rogers was telling me. They're working on getting a system administrator to help bring it into the up-to-date and whatnot. But anyways, this is still available. You can get to it on your laptop anyways, for sure. And I use it all the time on my iPhone. It uses inReach or spot trackers. And if you don't have an inReach or spot, I highly recommend it. It's a great safety tool, and it also is a good way for you to keep track of all of your flights that you have. But inReach or spots was first to the market. inReach has come in later, and now it's part of the Garmin products, and it's really come into its own. It's become kind of the gold standard now. Most people have inReach. Spot Tracker is available now. Competition's a good thing there, as is a lot of things, and the newer Spot Trackers are now also capable of a lot of the features that are in inReach. But inReach is really kind of become the standard. Next one we'll talk about is FlightAware, and this one uses either an N number or an airport that you would use to figure out where it is you want to look, or you can just turn it on and just look and zoom around in different areas. It'll show you every aircraft that's flying that has a transponder ADS-B out data. And you can then figure out where the gliders are by just picking the one, if that person happens to have a ADS-B out, which is becoming more and more popular with gliders. A lot of the guys that attach me have all gone, and myself included, have ADS-B out. And what's nice about this is that it tracks, I believe the update is, refresh rate, I should say, is very quick. I believe it's a minute or so, or even less, very fast. Gives you a lot of data. And I'll show you an example of that a little bit further down. A newer one is kind of really interesting. This is called the Glider Tracker or Open Glider Network, OGN. You may hear people talk about the OGN. And there's the Glider Tracker org URL. And this is real time. It only uses FLARM equipped gliders for its input data. So that's also becoming very popular with all of the cross-country pilots. It was originally designed to be used for contests, and it's now becoming more popular because everybody has FLARM, and all you have to do is get a couple of antennas out which we have in the area. We've got one in Palmdale. I believe it's near Walt Rogers' house. We have one up at Tehachapi, and we have one up at Inyokern. So we've got pretty much most of the Region 12 covered. I don't believe it goes as far south as down in Warner Springs area, but definitely will cover all of the Antelope Valley, Tehachapi area, and all of the Owens Valley. It's also a very fast response. Like I said, it is limited in the areas that it's seeing. They have to have the ground antennas to be able to see the data. But we're seeing more and more of these antennas going in all over the country. And now if you use Glider Tracker, you can zoom out and look all over the country and see where a lot of gliders are flying. Very fast refresh rate, really cool. Like I said, it was used originally for glider contests, which is a lot of fun to watch a glider contest because everybody has flarm. And then when you watch this, it's like watching the America's Cup sailboat races on television. It's really, really nice.
And what does FLARM stand for?
FLARM is a Swiss designed equipment. It is so flight alarm is the what the acronym means. And it is a device that we all have on many of us have on our gliders. And it's designed to help you be aware of other gliders, because gliders, as you know, are very hard to see when you're in the air, especially when you're in a contest and you're focusing on a lot of things other than the other gliders around you. So it gives you an alarm when you have a glider in your proximity, and especially a big alarm. It has gliders in proximity, it has gliders that are coming straight at you, same altitude. It gives you all of that kind of information, and it's got a nice little display that you can get, or you can have it right on your moving map display. That's what I have right on my LX9000, and it's really nice. Matter of fact, some of the guys even have it when you come nose to nose with another glider. They have it set up to where they have a strobe light system on their glider. Jim Staniforth has one as an example, and it will start blinking. And so not only you see the alarm, but you see, an enhanced strobe light coming straight at you, which I saw the other day. That wasn't pleasant the first time seeing that.
Not good, no.
But it's a lot more pleasant, I guess, than having a head-on collision. But FLARM is really good, and it's becoming more and more popular in the United States. It's used very extensively in Europe, especially in the Alps, where you have trouble seeing gliders with the snow background and coming around corners of mountains and things like that. It's a real help for that. The last one I'm going to talk about is not so much a tracker, but it's for the online contest, and this is what's used for after a flight is completed, where you would post your flight, your IGC, which stands for International Glider Council file, and that would come off of your logger. There's two ways to access this data. One is directly through the OLC. The URL's right there, or you can also get to it through the SSA website, and I'll show you how to do that. This is the most widely used worldwide system for putting your IGC files on. There's other ones. There's WeGlide, Skylines, and Cross Country. And it's kind of interesting. WeGlide is a brand new one. It's really come on strong with a lot of really cool features. And basically, I would say that OLC hasn't changed since it was first developed back in 1999. And they were pretty, I would say, not wanting to upgrade and to change a lot of things. But now that WeGlide came out with a lot of really cool features, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, they've upgraded quite a bit. So competition is a good thing, as always, in these types of arenas. And it's much better now than it was before. And it's getting better, well, I wouldn't say all the time, but it's getting better now due to competition. So, my bottom line is that tracking gliders, flying cross country is pretty easy, and you could learn a lot just by watching them. And, there's a lot of things, what do you really want to look for? What is this? What is that? My biggest best recommendation is just observe, because the more you observe, the more you learn. It'll just, gravitate into your brain, and you'll start seeing patterns, and we'll talk about that later. Okay, moving on. Let's go down to next chart. This is a glide port arrow that I mentioned. This is when I went straight into the URL. This is the map you'll see. The day that I did this, you can see there's a pilot. There's 1 pilot in Switzerland, 4 in Germany, 32 over here in the United States, because that was the time of the day. That's pretty much the end of the day in Europe at that time. So you click on USA, and as I mentioned before, this is the in-region spot tracker data. And when you go into the United States, you can see where all the various pilots are, all over the country. And in this case, you'll also see where our region, which is greater than just region 12, it includes all of Nevada and in California. At the time that I did this screenshot here, there were 4 pilots flying in the whole country. There was 1 down here, down south, 1 guy up here up north. We'll drill in and see who those 2 were in a few minutes. When you click on the area, you'll see on the left-hand side all the various airports where people are flying out of, and you'll see the 4 that were in California. They're over there on the left side: Agua Dulce, Byron, Hollister, and Williams. We're going to drill down into the guy who was flying out of Agua Dulce and the guy who's flying out of Williams in just a moment. Okay, next shot just shows how you click on it. It highlights it, opens it up, and then you get into who are those 4 guys. So now I've
just lost your audio.
The airport called Agua Dulce, which is a little uncontrolled municipal airport, just not too far from Santa Clarita. And he does a lot of really cool flights out of there. Chris, we're getting unstable again. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you cut out for about 10 seconds there and then came back.
Okay.
Just keep going. Let's see. Hopefully it doesn't continue.
So what you see in InReach is you see the altitude and the barogram. Here he's still climbing out, so there's not much to see on his barogram yet. And the instruments are showing his speed and his altitude, and obviously his location. Then I'll click on the guy who's way up north. This happens to be Kempton Izuno. He's flying an ESH-25, and it looks like he took a tow up and then is just gliding back down to Williams. And you can see his track there. Now you can zoom way in and get a lot more details of where he's flying on these as well. On a busier day, you'll see a whole lot more. So this is how you can get to that same website using if you are a member of the SSA. It's kind of convoluted these days. You have to log into members.ssa.org, and then you go to your SSA member resources. You log in there. When you log in, the center chart here, it says My Homepage. Click on that, and then it gets to the more familiar website that we used to have. You click on News and then Sailplane Locator, and you have 2 ways you can do it here. You can either type in the members side, and it'll show the URL. There's Dan and my, click there and it'll take you right to my spot tracker. Or if you want to see the entire map like we were looking at earlier, on the left-hand side is the what we used to call the live tracker, where it's got a magnifying glass on that. If you click on that, you'll get all of the same map that we just saw in Glide Port Arrow. You can still get to the Glide Port Arrow through the SSA website. It's a little, this is new. They just changed the website, so it's a little awkward right now. Hopefully that'll get easier in the future. Okay, and so this is using InReach real time. And this was a flight the other day. It was by Jim Staniforth. And this is on April 12th. I just happened to be putting these charts together, and I said, who's flying? And lo and behold, Jim's flying in our area. He's flying out of Cal City. You can kind of see that down in the on the left-hand side here. And he's gone up to the switchbacks area, and he's coming right back down the Sierra. When I click on the little arrowhead, I get the information shown on the right. That shows his speed, his course, altitude, elevation, lat long. Tells me who it is, and of course the time of day. So that's the kind of information you would see if you were using your iPhone or your tablet or your computer when you're watching people real time. And so what do you want to do? You want to observe, where did he go? How far did he go? You know, okay, looks like he's going right up here the ridge on the western side of 395 up the crest of the mountains. Pretty common path, as you'll see later. This is one of my flights, and the reason I wanted to show this is that you can look at the inReach data on the left-hand side where it shows date and time range. It's kind of nice. You can go in and say most recent flight, and you'll see at the time that was the most recent flight that I had out of Tehachapi. Or I can click all time, and all time will show all of the flights that I've ever done with carrying my inReach. And you can narrow that time range down. You can actually get down to the individual flight if you want to dive down. That's more for your own personal use than looking at others, but you can do that. So there is if you will, a file or a database for all these previous flights or past flights, I should say. So it has a lot of useful capability. This one's a little bit newer. It says Flight Aware. It's the one I was mentioning, which is using AVSC out data. And I'm looking at that same flight. This is Kim Staniforth. I happen to know his N number, so I typed in N331 Juliet Sierra. And I got the same flight I was just showing you on inReach a moment ago. And again, you've got a bear information or detailed map, if you will. I got another shot of it zoomed in a little bit more. And the nice thing here is that I've got layers, map layers in the upper right-hand corner, and I'm using a sectional. So that's kind of nice to have, especially if you're a new cross-country pilot, because what are you going to relate it to? Well, if you've got a sectional, you certainly have a sectional, and you can relate very easily where he's flying to that sectional. Again, as I was mentioning, he's to the west of
Dropped out for a moment.
and this is the same flight that it's like we got it unstable again. I'll let it go back on.
Yeah, we're back in. Maybe just repeat the last minute, go back one slide, and just the last thought you had on that previous slide.
Okay. I just was saying that this is convenient to be able to put the sectional map in the background and be able to see exactly where the flight is taking place on the using Flight Aware.
Right.
And if you use Flight Aware, if you just turn it on, open it up, you'll see all of the aircraft. So you won't just necessarily see who. I should have mentioned this earlier. You can save your favorites of N numbers and create quite a collection of pilots that you're watching. So that's kind of nice to have that. You can click and go, you can turn on Flight Aware and say, I wonder if Jim Staniforth is flying today, and click on his N number. And either he is or he isn't. He'll show you right where he is flying or not.
Yeah, that's definitely a good
next chart down. Pardon me?
That's definitely a good feature because you know, for me, I kind of know who the good pilots are, so I would definitely focus on, you know, those particular.
And I'm going to talk about that a little bit when we go further about keeping track of all of these guys. I should have mentioned that actually earlier for your spot tracker. When you go into the SSA, scroll back if you don't mind. Scrolling back a moment, if you go to the SSA website here, once you start knowing the guys, you can put in their call sign or their name, and you'll be able to get their URL, and then you can track that or keep that in a file. And I have a whole list of all my buddies literally all over the country where I have their URL for their spot tracker. And a lot of times I'll just click right on that and seeing how my buddy Bob Caldwell's doing out in Boulder today,
Mhm.
Don't bother going through all the other tracking systems. Just go straight to his spot tracker or InReach, whichever he has. So this is next chart now down is the glider tracker. I mentioned this earlier. This is the one that was developed for glider racing, and it uses FLARM, and it's updated very quickly. This is the same exact track that Jim Staniforth was flying that day. So you kind of can see by looking at all three systems the quality of each of them and what you're getting as far as information. All of these are free. They're all easy to get to, and they all have different goods and bads about them. So let's talk about the online contest. The online contest is also available two different ways. I'm going to talk about how to get to it with the new SSA website first. Very similar to what I mentioned before. You type in the URL for the member resources, log in, go to my homepage, and then you get over here to Sailplane Racing. And you click on online contest, and it takes you right to the page down in the bottom of the chart here. And it'll take you to it'll show the USA on the upper left-hand side, and it will show the year and whatever day was the last day that anyone's flying. So if you clicked on this on a Monday, you're probably going to see all the flights on a Sunday, because people don't usually fly on Mondays unless they're retired and can fly, but sometimes it happens. Or you can go directly to the online contest. When you do, there's some nice features here. It'll pop up with this, what I've circled in yellow here, the gliding scene. And this is their online contest magazine. This was actually sponsored by a German magazine that made the whole online contest work. And they've got their own little glider magazine here. And this will talk about some of the news with new flights that are exciting and new. And I'm going to use this particular one here by Ramy Yanitz when I go through the contest here. I'll go through the charts in a moment. And you can also see some of the other new features. This is where now mentioned that competition is a good thing. Well, now we can direct upload from your logger using your Wi-Fi system in your glider hooked to your hotspot on your iPhone. Presto poof, you can download your flight. That's how I do it now. It's really nice. That's a new feature. We had it as an old feature. They took it off because it was done by a third party and everyone complained. And now due to competition saying, oh no, we like that. Guess what? OLC's doing it again now. And it's nice. Really nice feature. That way I don't have to wait till I get home. For me, it's a long drive when I get home and finally get my computer. And it's usually like, oh God, 10, 11 o'clock at night by the time I'm finally home, if I've had a long day. That's the last thing I want to do. I want to go to bed. So it's nice having that. But to get to the OLC, the contest part of it, you click on gliding. That's why I've got that little blue arrow there. You click on the next little over to the right. When you do that, you get to, oh, I'm sorry, I wanted to talk about this real quick. This was also part of the Segelflug scene is the same as that magazine. They've got a new category now called the rookie rating. And this is really good for you guys that are just starting cross country. So there's new rules for it. I haven't read all of it, what the rules are all about, but it sounds like they're going to be focusing on people that are new to flying cross country, learning how to upload their flights. And, they're not going to be flying really long flights, but, when it's your first ones, they seem like they're really long. So that's kind of neat. So you might want to dive into that and see what's available to the newbie, as they call it, cross-country pilot. Okay, so when you get to the online contest, when you click on the gliding, it immediately comes up worldwide. And you have a lot of parameters here. There are several different competitions within the online contest. There's the OLC Plus, the Speed OLC. They even have a contest just for the Alps, which doesn't really concern us. It's a junior challenge and there's an OLC destination. What I always do is just go to daily score. When you do that, you also want to switch over here to the right-hand side now and go to North America. And you also want to be sure you have the date set to 2021. And then down below that, the proper date for what you want to look at. And you'll see all the pilots in the North America that flew in all of their various flights. Sorry, I should go back here. It's sorted by the longest distance. Somebody had a really good flight, 1,000-kilometer flight out of Blairstown. He's probably flying the ridges out of Blairstown on that day. That was on Friday, April 2nd. Yeah, it's typically springtime to get really good winds up and down the ridges. And see, a lot of these guys had some great flights, really ripping. So you can drill down further though. I mean, some of those guys, I know they're my friends, but if you're wanting to look at some of the local pilots, you go through North America, scroll down to where it says North America, click on USA, scroll down to region 12. And this breaks it down to you where you will only see the pilots here in Southern California that flew that day. And this happens to be on April 2nd. And you can see all this that flew. There weren't a whole lot of us, but Jim Staniforth, John Medley, Terry Honickman out of Santa Barbara. And he was flying with Morgan Hall, who flies typically out of Avenal. He was flying in their STEMI that they have, that Terry has. I was flying that day. Dave Caffey down in Warner Springs was flying, and Walt Rogers was flying, Tom Riley as well. And that was kind of a tough day. Either you stayed up and got some distance, or you did. Tom is one of the best pilots at Tehachapi, and I think he was late to launch and ended up not being able to go very far that day. He smoked all of us, by the way, last Saturday. Just blew us all out of the water. So that was a phenomenon. That was a not normal for him. So that one flight that I showed briefly in the Segelflug magazine was this flight by Rihn Yanitz. And Ramey's a fellow who flies out of Byron, typically, Williams, a few other places up in Northern California. He is known for being one of the best OLC scoring pilots in not only the United States, but in the world. The guy's phenomenal. He has some really cool flights. So I'm going to click on his flight and open it up, and you get, this is the map that you get when you first just open it up. It's the standard map. And you can see from this little, thumbnail here that he flew from Byron across the San Francisco Bay, went way up north, up around near Clear Lake area, as I recall, and then all the way back to Byron. Big, huge triangle flight. And then you have a little barogram. And you can also look without having any other mapping capabilities. You can look at the more advanced, click over here on the right, and you get a much more detailed map if you want to. Now, over here on the left side, down on the bottom, it has a series of photos. I want to show you some of those that you can now add on to your flight, which is kind of nice. So if you click on these pictures, it not only says where they are, but then you can zoom in and expand it, and you'll see what the pilot was seeing. This is a really cool flight. He's out over the Berkeley Hills. This is San Francisco off in the distance, Golden Gate Bridge, Angel Island, and Albany Hill down here. This happens to be where I grew up in the Bay Area here, so I know this area very well. And believe me, I cannot imagine anybody ever flying a glider over where I grew up. Next picture is shown. Like I say, you just go over here on the left-hand side, you click on these, and it'll tell you where he was. And you can see the Golden Gates over here. Now he's over Tiburon area. This is Angel Island here. So he's crossed the bay. That's the Oakland, San Francisco Bay Bridge there off in the distance. And you can see he's right at cloud level too. Pretty cool flight, but this gives you a good insight into what did the pilot see. And it's going to be interesting seeing in the future how many of the guys logging their flights on OLC and will include photos. I know I take photos every now and then, but sometimes it's pretty hard. You're pretty busy. And to be able to upload those now and share them is really nice. That's a cool feature. So I hope that takes off.
Dan, I'm just curious, are those photos being taken from his phone or from the actual flight computer?
No, I'm sure he either used his, knowing Ramey, I'm sure he used his iPhone. He's a Silicon Valley kind of guy.
Yeah.
I doubt he used a separate camera, but you could do it either way.
Good, thanks.
I don't think you can upload videos, so I haven't noticed if you can or can't. Then there's, this is back to Ramey's flight again, the first opening. It's kind of nice because now they've got this feature here in the upper right-hand corner. You can click on CU and it will open CU Cloud, and you can look at the flight in incredible detail. A lot you can learn just from using the CU Cloud. It's a little different than the CU that you would buy or have a subscription to, but it's still very, very, very good. You can click on the KML, and when you click on that, it will open up his whole path, his whole track, I should say. And you use the normal controls of Google Earth of being able to move it around and look at it in 3D and see the terrain below it. That's really kind of fun to do sometimes. Then the IGC, the International Glider Council flight. This is the file of all of his log at whatever setting he has. Typically, we use anywhere between 1 second to 5 second intervals. So it'll be very, very detailed when you click on that. Now, to click on that, you do have to be a registered member for the OLC, which doesn't cost anything, so that's no big deal. You have to just log in, and then you can open it up. And when you do that, the best way to look at it is on CU. So if you don't have CU yet, if you don't have your subscription, you wouldn't want to do that. But you can see just about everything over on CU Cloud. And I'm going to show you some of that in the next chart or two. There it is. That's what you would see with CU Cloud. And I've got it zoomed way out, but you can go in very detailed. You can actually use the controls down at the bottom to play the flight, if you will. So you'll see him start with his takeoff over here in the barogram that's down below, and you'll track his flight as he continues on, and it'll also be showing on the map. You can do it in 3D, and you can manipulate the viewing angle. It looks like a little glider flying over the terrain. It's kind of nice. You can vary the speed. That's this little speedometer over here. You know, watching somebody fly for 6 hours in real time is not very exciting. I definitely would recommend speeding that up considerably. And you can zoom in and out. You can do all kinds of stuff with CU Cloud. It's really a very, very nice program. And as I mentioned, it's all free. It's not you have to pay for that one to get that. You learn a lot. Now I've got it set for altitude. So you can see this is the, unfortunately we don't, here we are. Over on the right-hand side is the altitude. So when you're seeing red, he's down low, blue, he's up high, green's in the middle. So most of his flight really wasn't all that high. I don't have the, I guess it doesn't show the actual heights that go with those color bands. So I can't tell exactly how high he is, but I guess you get it from the barogram here. Unfortunately, it looks like it's in metric. Yeah, so those are in meters. I'm wondering if perhaps the settings, you could change that to imperial units, or if you used to think in a metric, either way. Funny, this is in feet and miles per hour, but those altitudes look more like
Is my first collection of papers that are run off from my
Maybe lost your audio for a second again.
not even usual. These have a little bit more heft to
I'm
them.
still waiting for your audio to come back. Come on, audio.
Friday, Graphics Fairy makes a freebie available. This is the one that came yesterday. And I looked at it and said, oh, wow. This is
Yeah, I think what your viewing screen crashed. We lost the share screen.
Huh. Let's see. How can I get back to that? I don't have the control here.
You should if you just click on the share screen, and if you're
I don't have any. I don't have any controls.
Oh, you gotta be kidding. Boy, let me see.
There we
hold
go.
on.
Let me see. There we go.
It refreshes, it got it.
I think so.
There we go. All right.
My having to figure out where those controls go
There you go.
when they disappear.
Okay.
Okay. So this is in 3D. You get a good view of this. This is the bay here. San Francisco's over on the upper right-hand corner. He's crossing the bay, and you can see his track. That just gives you an example of what you can actually see when you're using a CU Cloud 3D. Very nice program. This is what it would look like in Google Earth. And as cool as Google Earth is, I think I like CU better. But it is kind of nice to be able to use that as, as a matter of fact, today I was looking at a person that did a land out last weekend, and I used Google Earth to get a better view as to where the lady pilot out of Avenal, see if I could figure out where she really landed at a little ranch strip, which was kind of interesting. I didn't even know that place existed. So it's nice to be able to look at it sometimes in Google Earth. You can learn a lot from that.
Can I interrupt for a second to
Sure.
ask you what's the preference? What's more advantageous or better about the CU?
Well, it depends upon what I want to see. If I want to see the glider performance and really drill into seeing how they flew, I would go all the way to my to either CU Cloud or the CU that I have a subscription for. If I want to get a feeling for what the terrain looked like, it's pretty good in CU for that. Sometimes it's actually better in Google Earth.
Mhm.
And you can leave these tracks on Google Earth. They'll stay there, or you can delete them. You don't want to clutter up your Google Earth.
Got it.
But like a lot of times, I'll even take some of my own flights. I had a good flight last summer where I was flying down the Sierra, and I happened to be flying over a lot of the John Muir Trail that I'd hiked when I was a kid growing up. And I was using Google Earth to correlate my photos that I had taken so that I had pictures of the lakes that I'd fished at and the trails I'd hiked over, the passes I'd hiked over, things like that. That was kind of nice. So it depends upon what you want to do. And for that particular instance, Google Earth was very helpful.
Gotcha.
And like today, I used Google Earth to find out what that airstrip was that Julie landed out. Julie Butler is her name, in Discus.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
This is what it looks like if you get and this is just a very, very brief snapshot of what the CU purchase or subscription looks like. If you can purchase it, and then you'll have just that one version frozen in time, you'll have that forever. Or you go with a subscription and you'll get all of the updates for whatever happens as far as updates for the whole year. It's a 1-year subscription. And a lot of guys just get it once and that's it. Matter of fact, in the old days, you could buy a CD and you just would have that and that's what you would use. But it's completely up to you. But again, this is, I just picked these 3 different snapshots to show you what it looks like. In the left-hand side is what it looks like in 3D. Here's what I'm saying, if you look at that, yeah, you get a feel for the terrain, but you'd see that better in Google Earth, perhaps. The right-hand side showing where he flew in relationship to the into the Class B airspace of San Francisco, which apparently he flew under. Pretty ballsy guy for sure. You would definitely see that better in CU than you're going to see that in Google Earth. And here's his barogram, and I was right. He was only about 6,000, 8,000 feet-ish or so crossing the bay. So that's he's an amazing pilot. So what can you learn? Well, first off, you need to study a whole lot of flights to start, and there's just being aware of it and being observant and look for patterns. When did they launch? What was the weather like that day? Where did they go? Where did they find lift? is there a usual route? And in the soaring season, typically when we have a high pressure zone that's out in the four corners of the United States, low pressure off over the ocean, that's when it's going to really get cranking. And Walt Rogers will, I'm sure, as if he hasn't already briefed about that, but that's the typical really good soaring conditions that we get in Southern California. So you'll see with that happening, which happens often in the summer, there's a lot of patterns as to the routes that we fly and where we go. And so you want to be able to start taking note of that and see where these guys are going and when they went, things like that. What were the decisions they made? You can kind of figure that out by just watching these flights. One of my buddies, Mark Rubb, always sees one of the master pilots in the whole country. He always says, "Hey, it's great nowadays with all this loggers. There are no secrets. It's all there for you." And you also want to look, which is what I was doing today, I just mentioned, study the flights that had a land out. You may need that someday. And that's why I studied Julie Butler's flight, because I didn't even know there was a place over there where she landed that you could land at. And now I know. So it's mentally in my memory bank. If it ever becomes a place that I need to have an emergency, I know right where it is now. And then you want to meet the pilots, and ask them questions about their flights. And those I put in the bottom here is that pilots love to talk about their flights, especially the good ones. And if you just ask them questions, they'll tell you. If they're not too busy doing something else, getting ready to leave or something like that, they'll tell you all about their flight. And you can learn a lot from that. Ask them about the weather, ask them, well, why did you go that way versus this way or whatever, and they'll tell you. And pretty soon you'll start learning an awful lot. And especially if you were flying that day as well, when you get back and land, and you say, "Wow, I went this far, but you guys went way over further, or wherever you went." And that, and
I lost your audio for a second there. Come on back, audio. Yeah, I'm afraid it crashed again.
yeah,
Why?
I wonder if it's on my end. If I'm too far away from my Wi-Fi, or if these charts are too big.
I don't think it's the charts. I don't think the size of those files are that big.
Yeah. Well, I hope you got it all, Chris. That's
Yeah, except for the last comment there. I mean, you're generally telling us, it's really a lot to learn, and talk to the guys, talk to the pilots, and pick the guys, people you want to follow, and just spend the time following those flights. And when you get a chance to, rub elbows, do so. Get out there and find out what they did and why they did it. So,
Yeah.
like you say, they'll let you know.
I'm wondering when I in my den at my other house where I gave the first briefing, I'm right next to my Wi-Fi, and here at my house it's downstairs. I'm wondering if I'm just too far away.
Yeah, that could be. Right now, I'm just going to say, just kind of to wrap for this recording, that we really appreciate the knowledge and insight from experienced pilots like yourself, Dan, and giving us just a really good overview of those 3 different programs, and well, actually 4 altogether. And it's really, I know I'll be rewatching this to, and signing up for some of these different programs so I can just start studying, finding out where they went. And I'm also hoping that there's some glider, I would think there's some records for more of the Southern California flying and soaring. I know more of your pilots like yourself were kind of going to Hatchby and going north, but be nice if there's some recordings for Southern Cal too.
Yeah, oh, they'll be out there. If you go onto the OLC, I can do that real quick here if you like,
Yeah.
just for you and me here. Let me get out of this for